Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the webinar. I'll talk for just a few minutes and let people come on in. You have joined Families for Depression Awareness for our webinar. Today's May 25th, 2023. This will be available after today as well. But welcome. My name is Susan Weinstein. I'm co-executive director at Families for Depression Awareness. You are here for our webinar, Setting Boundaries for Healthy Relationships and Caregiver Self-Care. We're very excited to offer this program. It's been in demand for a while, and we've got a great program ahead, and I'm very excited that you could be here. We're going to be using the chat to provide you with resources and links and various things. And of course, this is when my dog gets interested. You can participate in the chat as well. So please do say hi. And if you want to say where you're from, that's great too. If you don't, that's good. If you have questions, then please do use the Q&A feature. And you should know that if you submitted your question during registration, we do have that. We've incorporated several of them into the presentation itself. And we have a list of some that we will get to in the Q&A section of our program. Hello, hello, people from Ohio and Massachusetts. We have one of our panelists from Ohio. Hi, Christy. And I'm in Massachusetts, and we have one of our panelists in New York. So we're covering a lot of ground here, and we welcome you all from Seattle, from DC, from Cincinnati. Hello, Hudson, Mass. Hello, Salem, Mass. I don't have to read all of them, but just thrilled to have you here. We had great registration for this, and we're very excited that you're here. I'm so sorry. We're going to take the dog's collar off. You would think this far into past the pandemic, I would remember to do that. But, you know, here we go. All right. So Texas, oh, Hamilton, Ohio. I've actually been there. All right. So setting boundaries for healthy relationships and caregiver self-care. We're going to be launching a poll. And there it is. So please take a moment to answer it. The question is, how much do you know about setting boundaries for healthy relationships? Make a choice between a lot, a good amount, some, and not much. And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce you a little bit to Families for Depression Awareness. We're a national nonprofit organization, and we focus on educating and equipping family caregivers to support their loved ones who live with depression or bipolar disorder. Our mission, as you can see, is that we help families recognize and cope with depression and bipolar disorder to get people well and prevent suicides. We believe that family caregivers hold a special place in suicide prevention and improving family mental health in general. For us, we see them as usually among the first to notice a problem. They are usually highly motivated to do something about it because of their relationship with this person. And they're often positioned to marshal the resources that are needed to get their loved one the care that they need. We also know that when one person is dealing with or not dealing with depression or bipolar disorder, it affects the whole family. And we believe that every person in the family should have their needs identified and addressed. We finished with the poll. We still got some people giving answers. Come on, we want to know. For heaven's sake, Susan, you can do this. All right. Presumably, most of you have been to our website, familyaware.org. We've got loads of materials. We hope that it works for you mobile and desktop, because we've worked to make that happen. It's the hub of our resources. So we have loads of educational content, but we also offer online tools for depression and bipolar disorder screening. We have a mental health family tree, so you can identify like patterns of mood disorders in your family. And we have a caregiver stress test. And I know that you're thinking, yes, I know I'm stressed. I'm a caregiver. but it also tells you the scale of where you are on your stress and provides you with resources for managing that stress. We have expert interviews on a variety of topics, such as depression treatment, women's mental health, and shared decision-making, and tons more. Since our founding in 2001, we've relied on storytelling to educate and inspire families to face their mood disorders together. Storytelling helps to defeat the stigma of mental health that too often prevents people from acknowledging their struggle and seeking care. You'll find stories of lived experience both on our website and our YouTube channel, which is FFDA1. Somewhere. We also have webinars. We have been building our library of webinars. We've been doing webinars since 2010, so way before the pandemic. We've been providing free webinars for caregivers nationwide, and our library is being built out. The three that are shown on the slide here, the adult depression, getting on the path to wellness as a family, the what if I say the wrong thing, tips for communicating with your loved one or when your loved one is depressed, and bipolar disorder beyond the basics. Those are some of our most popular ones. But if you have an issue that you're trying to deal with, go to the webinars and see which ones might help you work through that issue. Oh, good. So let me just tell you that of the people in the audience, we have a majority that have some knowledge about setting boundaries. We have a few that say that there's a lot. We have a few more that say not much. And about a quarter of you all who answered said that there's a good amount. Okay. Was I supposed to share results? Well, I just told you. Okay. Moving along, maybe. I'm sorry that I keep doing that. We also have these great publications. We've been updating them and writing new ones. Our 60-page handbook, Helping Someone Living with Depression or Bipolar Disorder, covers the role of caregivers, more about mood disorders, the process of change, and we also provide a lot of practical strategies for caregivers and for families. The bipolar disorder, the adult depression, and the preventing suicides brochures include psychoeducation, but also the kinds of stories that I was talking about that can really help inspire and motivate people. We also have an adult depression wellness guide. So visit our website at familyware.org/publications and you'll be taken to them. Our agenda, oh, that's where I was supposed to do it. Whoops, turn that off. Let me move that out of my way. Here we are. So our agenda for this evening, or whenever you're watching, is that we'll talk about defining boundaries, what they are. We'll have a lot of considerations for caregivers. We'll move into some practical strategies. We'll have some practice exercises. We'll talk a little bit about FFDA resources that are on topic. Then we'll move to our questions and answers. And I do want to just point out that we will be doing, asking you to participate in a survey after the program. Your feedback is really important to us. It helps us improve our programs. It also helps us offer the programs that you want to see, the topics that you want to learn about. So please do take the moment. And for everyone who completes the survey, we'll enter their name into a drawing. And we're going to be giving away a couple of Courage to Caregivers Resilience guidebooks. We expect that this webinar will be about 90 minutes in total, and I've already taken up about 10 of them. So I'm very happy now to introduce our featured presenters. Jenny Woodworth is a licensed independent social worker who serves as Director of Programs and Support Group Leader at Courage to Caregivers, which you can find more about at couragetocaregivers.org. Jenny graduated from West Virginia University with a bachelor's degree in social work and earned her master's degree in social work at Cleveland State University. She has a rich variety of experiences across populations and settings and is passionate about supporting mental health and wellness in families, individuals, and especially caregivers. She strives to bring compassion, a sense of humor, and hope into all of her interactions. Helena Mirzoyan is a passionate mental health and public health advocate. She's using her master's in public health degree at NYC Health Plus Hospitals, where she is currently working on digital health initiatives within the Office of Ambulatory Care Operations and Population Health. Helena serves on the Families for Depression Awareness Family Caregiver Advisory Panel, where she shares her experience as a caregiver to inform our programs and educate our audiences. Welcome to you both, and thank you. We really appreciate you being here. Jenny, let me turn the program over to you.
Well, Susan, thank you so much. I'm always super grateful to work with you and your staff. You guys are fun, professional, and I'm super glad to be here. And welcome to all of you who are either attending live, or about 97 of you right now, which is wonderful, or those of you that are watching this video. Welcome. Thanks for being brave and talking about boundaries with me tonight. So I'm going to do, Susan kind of went over what we're talking about tonight, but really, I mean, the best way to start here is to kind of model boundaries with you, gosh, just at the very start of this program. So I'm going to mention self-care because that's kind of what I do, but taking care of yourself while we talk about difficult things, even though you're sitting there, maybe you're nodding, maybe you're shaking your fists as I'm talking, if you don't agree with something I say, check in with yourself. We all have different relationships with boundaries. We are all still learning, especially me, respecting that we're all works in progress. And I don't have all the answers tonight. I am going to encourage you, hopefully not just this once, that if there are issues in your life where you need professional support regarding boundaries, this is not your end. I'm inviting you to consider this as your beginning and to seek professional support as you talk about boundaries. So again, appreciate your grace if I flounder, when I flounder, and I don't have all the answers. Boundaries are hard, but we don't have to treat ourselves harshly during this presentation. In fact, I would invite you to sit back, do something self-soothing. I am always with a hot beverage. If you've seen a webinar with me before, I'm actually using my Salem, Massachusetts mug in celebration of partnering with FFDA tonight. So I also have like a tiny rock that I touch when I get nervous, when I'm talking too much. So if you've got those things in your life, pull them out now when we're talking about hard stuff. And if you don't yet, something to think about. What makes me feel better when I'm talking about hard things like boundaries? So again, attending to these needs, part of your own personal boundaries, your own self-care, and your own self-management of needs. If you need to walk away, remember, this is being recorded, just me and the other speakers, not you. So you can get back to this when you need to. If you need a break, take it. So why are we all here? What are boundaries? And when I talk about this with my children, I have two small girls. Sometimes I say where you end and I begin. And that's a real simple, especially when we're talking about physical boundaries, but there are many definitions. There's a great one on the screen. It's that set of limits. It's also rules we set for ourselves within relationships, things we will tolerate, things we won't accept. And I don't have to tell you that looking at this through that familial relationship lens, this makes this even more complex. And it has the definition is even more challenging to work with. We want to help, we want to support. We have got to take care of ourselves as we are laying boundaries. So I'm going to just ask, were boundaries, there's a poll, that's amazing. Do you feel selfish when you set boundaries or have to say no to your loved one? Go ahead and take a minute to do that as I'm gathering myself here. No right or wrong answers to these polls, and I'd love to hear from you because it definitely gives me some talking points. I'm not quite there in the slides. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Say overarching, well, 50%. Wow, how often does that happen? Sometimes feel selfish when they set boundaries. 12% of you no, 38% of you, yes, you feel selfish. Okay, thank you. So just a quick, as we're being gentle with ourselves and being gentle with our presenter here, boundaries, were they taught in your family of origin? I'm guessing, we don't have a poll about that, but I'm guessing probably not. I know something I'm teaching, as I was talking about, I'm teaching like bodily autonomy is kind of my introduction to boundaries for my little ones. So again, you probably weren't taught this. This is going to be a lifelong process for you, that you're going to have to be gentle as you learn about them, establish them, maintain them, all of those things. Let's see what else. We've got the selfish. They are not selfish. They are self-full. Love that word. Again, boundaries are extremely hard to set with family. I'm not going to deny that, because you have this lifelong relationship with them, right? They're intimately familiar with your triggers. They know how to push those buttons, right? You have a pattern, you have expectations, and just a way of being with your family. None of those are bad things, but again, it complicates the situation. It's a lot different for me to set a boundary with a family member who I live in the house with than, someone that is being borderline creepy on the subway. For me to say, no, this is my space. This is where I begin and you end, or however you want to put it. It could be, that's scary, no question about it, but you're probably never to see that person again. These boundaries with family, complicated. So we have 3 types of boundaries. And they are, again, physical or emotional. And there are the types that are not ideal, I'll put it that way. Again, good, bad, we're not going to label these things as such right now, but there's loose boundaries, there's porous boundaries, very vague limits. So when you have a loose boundary with someone, especially as a caregiver with a loved one, you're going to take on those emotions and needs of others as priorities over your own needs and feelings. And in these relationships, another word for this type of boundaries is enmeshed boundaries, where it's difficult to separate the needs of 2 or more individuals. So it looks like this, if you like a good visual, you're like, we are enmeshed here in our relationship. Rigid boundaries are often a defense mechanism to protect you from the physical or emotional needs of others. So those with rigid, there's my rock. Those with rigid boundaries, they can avoid close relationships. They're going to be detached, and they're going to have this wall. They're going to try to keep others away to protect themselves from either real or perceived projection. So the ideal here, the healthy boundaries, again, work in progress here. It's a way of balancing your needs and the needs of others. So you can maintain your own values, share appropriately, communicate well, and again, accept no with little emotional investment or without guilt. And that's the sweet spot right there. Great considerations for caregivers. Yeah. So why do this to ourselves? Why do we need to set boundaries, especially as caregivers and for those with a mental health diagnosis? To me, boundaries are self-protective, protecting your sense of well-being, your peace. And you're going to hear me say that a lot. Like, how do you protect your peace? So failure to hold firm to these boundaries can leave you feeling overburdened, overcommitted. They can bring you compassion fatigue. They can lead to burnout. And some clues, they're here on the screen. What does it feel like when we need boundaries? Like, you're feeling resentful of your person, of your situation, frustrated, and maybe you're approaching, or you are like crispy with burnout. That are some clues. Some folks, and we're going to talk a little bit in this presentation about bodily sensations and somatic work. Some people could feel it in their body, like, that gut feeling that when you say yes instead of no. Some of us can say, ooh, I knew, I just got this feeling. You're going to feel that in your gut or your body. But I know for everyone that, some of us have been encouraged to not be in our bodies, or we don't trust our bodies. Maybe you're not clued in to listening to your body. So that may not be a case for you. Maybe you're looking more at those kind of traditional, I feel resentful, I feel these things. I don't feel anything in my body right now, Jenny. It's okay. I'm going to be playful later, and we're going to play with some somatic exercises. I'm going to invite you to join me. And again, or I'm going to invite you to giggle as I kind of do these things. That's okay, either way. So somatic, again, keep that in mind. It means relating to the body, especially as distinct to the mind. Ah, my other presenter, Helena. Hey.
Hey, hey
Thanks
there.
for
You can
being
hear
here.
me okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to Families for Depression Awareness for having me. I'm definitely happy to support them and the amazing work that they're doing in this way. And thank you to everyone for joining. So I want to talk a little bit about my caregiver experience, and I hope this information is helpful in terms of maintaining boundaries. From my experience, maintaining boundaries has definitely been a game changer as I provide care for my family member dealing with depression. And the boundaries actually go both ways. Both I get to have boundaries and my family member gets to have boundaries. And I realize that these boundaries are important because if they're not there, I don't know whether I'm actually helping them. For example, without them, I might think I'm helping by, continuing being persistent about pushing on a point or an approach that I have heard is right, or I'm trying to be helpful in this persistent kind of way, even after the point where my family member has very clearly shut down in communication and stopped being responsive. I'm not proud to say, but that's essentially a boundary that they were setting up, right? And I used to think that it's helpful to be persistent in that way, but spoiler, it really wasn't. And now that the boundary is there and I'm respecting it, my relationship with my family member has completely transformed in the sense that they're more of an active participant in the relationship and dealing with their depression. And it's no small thing for me personally, the improvement that I've seen in our relationship and just maintaining that baseline. So again, just to drive that point home, it's knowing how effective those boundaries are. It's really great. A light bulb kind of went off in my head thinking about all of the times in the past when similar scenarios would come up, such as the one that I described, and I realized that those were all boundaries, and I should have been more respectful of them. And so now I'm much more mindful if someone is shutting down and not reciprocating in a conversation, that is essentially a boundary and it has to be respected, not just out of respect for the person and the integrity of who they are, but it also has to be respected if you really want to help them. And for me, that was the most important lesson that I learned.
That's great. Can I ask you, like, how did you learn about boundaries? Like, when was this introduced as a concept to you? Again, like as I mentioned, it's not necessarily something that we learn as kids. Or tell me, do you remember when that happened?
I think it's more just reading about it and hearing and kind of drawing my own conclusions about how boundaries are reflected. You read about them and you hear about them. It's become one of those buzzwords, right? And then you kind of, as you apply it to your own life, which is kind of what I was saying, I started realizing all those examples and realizing that those are all boundaries. And that was the big realization for me, where it's really not this abstract thing. And it comes up every day in everyday conversations or things that are actually really can be much more impactful. So I guess for me, it was the change of it's rather than it's just this word floating around of boundaries abstract, it's something that I actually have real life examples of all the time.
Excellent. Okay. We'll be hearing again from you later in this webinar. So thanks so much for
Yeah.
your lived experience. Super important. Someone just asked in the Q&A, how can I encourage someone else to set boundaries? If you just want to make myself a note to answer that, I probably shouldn't have. Okay, someone else. Okay, there's a certain place I think I'm going to talk about that, so hopefully I do. Okay, so oh goodness, why can it be hard to set boundaries? If we were all sitting around having coffee together in our warm mugs, we would probably have a conversation about this, because you could probably tell me about your experiences trying to set boundaries. I would say as a caregiver, as someone who's supporting, in a lot of cases, registrants are supporting folks who are adult children. Guilt, we don't want to hurt or disappoint others. But, the interesting thing is I was doing the research, but if we aren't wanting to hurt or disappoint others, but we are willing to disappoint or hurt ourselves by doing something that, again, doesn't feel right in our bodies or makes us feel uncomfortable and yuck, I guess that's my clinical way of saying that feels yucky. I'm going to say it again. We don't want to hurt or disappoint others, but we are willing to disappoint or hurt ourselves by doing something that feels uncomfortable. So one of the reasons we cannot set boundaries, again, family roles, parents, my gosh, again, parent of little ones, but we're supposed to be, especially mothers, sorry guys, that we are supposed to be these eternal wellsprings of patience and goodwill, and our hair is also supposed to look great, and we're not supposed to snap, that we are supposed to be boundaryless, that we are supposed to be constantly giving. This is not true, but this is a societal norm in many ways, and that is part of why this can be challenging. Social conditioning, helping means that we are good people, and when we don't have boundaries, and again, we're kind of that eternal wellspring of goodness, patience, boundaryless, that means we're good. We're helping. We are lovable. We are loving. We are boundaryless. And again, fear of losing love is another reason why people have trouble setting boundaries. And again, that parent-child relationship is really challenging. Another one is fear of conflict, that we avoid saying no when it might put us into conflict with another person. And some of the questions you all submitted, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, that you are worried about conflict and physical conflict for some of the people you support. That is a real and valid concern. So, why talk about this? So I kind of alluded to it in my last slide, because if you take nothing away from this webinar tonight, at least if I would have felt I would have felt like I've done my job, if you can agree with this statement: you can be loving and lovable while still holding boundaries. Say it again for those in the back: you can be loving and lovable while still holding boundaries. I mentioned this, the self-worth and self-esteem. People that have these things, and again, don't start beating yourself up if you say, oh, well, that's not me, so I can never have boundaries. No, I would say folks that have this strong sense of self-worth, it's easy for them to say, oh, these are my needs, these are my desires. What, does or doesn't work in your life. And then, you can communicate that to others. So when you communicate your needs, use respectful and appropriate language, spoiler, you have just set a healthy boundary in many cases. So when you're able to say no to a person, request, or situation, you are supporting your self-esteem by recognizing what, again, feels uncomfortable or unsafe, or what feels like it's going to be pushing you towards burnout or compassion fatigue. You may need to remind yourself that you won't, again, lose that love by saying no, but that eventually, hopefully, gosh, if the heavens open and the angels sing, you'll actually gain respect for standing up for yourself. You can tell yourself that no is a complete sentence. And I kind of hate that, because all of you are like, Jenny, that makes it sound so easy. Again, maybe throw that out if that doesn't make sense for you right now. And again, if you are not a person who is overflowing with self-worth and self-esteem, who's like, yes, I feel my needs are valid and I'm going to just come in there, start with self-compassion. I love Kristen Neff. Sorry, again, those of you that watched me before are like, Jenny, get off this Kristen Neff. She is not paying me. I do not have merchandise. I just love her, because self-compassion is like where you can start. If you were like self-worth and self-esteem, self-love, that is way too hard for me, Jenny. Self-compassion is treating yourself as you would a good friend or a beloved child if you're a parent, of saying, God, setting boundaries is so hard. I see you out there. So instead of saying, oh God, why can't you set any boundaries? What's wrong with you? Which is how we often talk to ourselves, right? So treating yourself with self-compassion in every way, but also with, when you're thinking about setting boundaries, is, to me, chef's kiss. That's a place to start for sure. This is where I want to answer that question. So find boundary role models and experts. Again, this might be your introduction to boundaries. you may want to have some continued reading. I love Nedra Tawwab. She is excellent. This book is excellent, easy to read. She has an excellent Instagram account as well, if you're a social media person. She, again, love her. I would highly recommend reading this book. I read it in preparation for this. Another person that I think does boundaries really well, Melissa Urban, actually, one of her strategies for boundary setting, I'm going to share that here later on in the presentation. She is also, I've not utterly read that book, but still a good one. And Anne Catherine is one of the first people who kind of started talking about boundaries in the public sphere. Really interesting work as well. But, you know, as I was preparing for this, we, Families for Depression Awareness, we were talking about maybe there's someone in your life who holds excellent boundaries. So maybe you can find a boundary buddy. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but, you know, to go, wow, look how she just handled that guy, or look how she is interacting right now. Again, she's probably not perfect all the time, but you could go, whoa, how did you learn that? I mean, we have book clubs. Why can't we have boundary clubs? I mean, it could be a safe place to kind of talk about, you know, what works and what doesn't. And also, if you have other resources, maybe they're coming in right now. Oh yeah, there we go. Matt Townsend, that's excellent. I would love, oh great, thanks, Ari. Yeah, I was just gonna say, oh, and you did Kristen Neff, you're my friends. Okay, thanks so much. So again, finding someone in your life, please drop your own experts. Again, so the question that came up in the Q&A was, how do you encourage someone else to set boundaries? Ooh, I would say modeling. You know, again, you don't have to go, look what I'm doing right here. You could model setting boundaries. I don't know about you, but when I tell someone to do something, it doesn't always go very well. Again, I have a 7-year-old, so that doesn't go very well. But when I model my calm body, or when I model not talking so fast, when I model all of these things, she is way more likely to pick it up. And again, I'm not trying to I don't know if you were talking about an adult or a grown up, or adult or grown up, kid or grown up, but again, I think that works for us too. It's like that almost emotional contagion thing, like where you're like, oh, look at that calm body, look at that calm person. You know, so modeling in that way, it's worth a shot. Oh, I hope I didn't ruin this poll, but we are all born with the skills we need to set boundaries, true or false. I would love to hear from you. Mhm. I would agree that it's false. We are all born with the skills we need to set boundaries. I think we all have the ability, and it can be there, but it isn't like we come out of the womb going, yes, here's where you end, I begin. We have to learn these things. We have to practice these things. And we don't always like to hear that. And oh, I see a continuation of the modeling question. I'm going to hold that one just so I can get through what I'm working on here. But Martha, I will do my best to circle back to that. Oh, looks like FFDA is also answering it. So how do we set boundaries? This is probably why you're all here, is for me to give you this answer. So, okay, get ready. Just kidding. So boundaries, you know, we can start small. I think that is a way to practice. We have to start small, because if I walked in and I told, you know, oh gosh, let me think of an example. If I were to go, you know, I am no longer cleaning this house and I am just done. I'm mic drop out. And that the boundary is just so extreme. You know, no, everyone else is like, we're so used to you cleaning the house. This is kind of an exaggeration, but that they would be like, what is happening to mom? She's lost it. Like, what's happening now? So again, start small. Find, and I'm skipping around now, and I don't want to do that, but you know, finding a person to practice with being clear, gentle, and firm. And that's why people say things like no is a complete sentence. And I think what they're trying to say is be clear, gentle, and firm. That's why NO period. I mean, that's pretty clear. It's pretty firm. We could question the gentleness at that time. Examine your own assumptions. And I'm going to talk about this more, but constantly saying, oh, I can't set a boundary because they're going to act like this, and just forget it. Without trying or without practicing, that's, maybe that's not true. And I wonder sometimes when we talk about these familial relationships, again, we have all these patterns, we have all these assumptions. It's how we get through our day sometimes, right? Is to have those things. But that if we were to look at this intellectually, and again, I'm not asking you to like rocket science boundaries, right now, but I'm asking you to maybe take a step back from that emotion. And, I'm kind of touching my brain and my body at the same time. Just step back from that emotion and think about, that compassion piece again of like, if your friend came to you and said, gosh, I'm so tired of cleaning this house. And you would say, well, have you asked anyone else to clean? Or have you told them that, your boundaries are you're only going to clean on the weekends? And you'd go, oh my God, instead of being all wrapped up in your emotions, to come at from that intellectual piece. That is the beginning. I have more to say on this, but this is the beginning. Clear, gentle, and firm. Another thing to remember from this presentation. So there's setting boundaries, and then there's actually holding them. There's actually being consistent and persistent with holding boundaries. And I think that's sometimes where we go south, right? Like, you're like, okay, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. I'm just not. I'm so tired of this behavior. So I'm going to set this boundary. And then, real life happens, right? Hard stuff happens. Again, people feel guilt. And what do you do with that? I want to say that's one of our most common questions when I was going through the questions you all submitted in our in your registrations, is that, what do I do with this feeling of guilt? And I wish I had a great answer. I'd love to tie this up in a bow for you. I want to say that you remind yourself why you're doing this, that you are feeling that burnout, you are feeling that being taken for granted for, and it is not helping your caregiving. That is not what is it's not providing you, your ultimate wonderful caregiving self that you can be, that having boundaries can get you closer to that. Again, no pressure. I don't want you to have to come in your Superman or Superwoman cape and be the best caregiver ever. But I think reminding yourself of why you're doing it can help with guilt, can help with, I feel bad about doing this. You're seeing what looks like maybe suffering from the other person because of your boundary. Unpack that a little bit. Like, look at their reactions, think about your own reactions. A big reaction we get from folks is minimization. Like, well, you always let me do this before. Like, what's wrong with you? You've changed, mom, or you've changed, honey. Like, who are you talking to? Who are you hanging out with? That's something my parents always used to say. Who are you hanging out with? Like, what's happening? So they're going to minimize, they're going to question, they're going to push, they're going to push back a little bit. This is new, right? Like, what is going on with mom, or what is going on with dad? Sorry, I often talk because I am a mom. So we also get minimizations from ourselves. And I think this is where the consistency and the persistence comes through. We go, okay, well, maybe that behavior hasn't been a big deal. And you kind of start questioning yourself, like, why did I set a boundary? Now, God, they're all mad. And, a good parent or a good spouse or a good caregiver would be okay with this. They would just self-care it away, or they would just ignore this behavior. And again, there's that social conditioning again, that desire to be the good spouse or the good parent or the good daughter or good son. Again, this is hard stuff. So these emotions and experiences, we're not going to process them all here. Again, I would love to take the 100+ of you that are now on and give you hugs and say, it's going to be okay. And setting boundaries is a healthy and helpful thing to do. you're going to have to seek that from someone else as well. Watching this webinar is probably your first step. This is going to be, again, a lifelong process, and it's going to require repetition. So you're going to have to plan for the pushback. So when I was making these, well, Ari, wonderful person that she is, made these slides, but I titled this Planning for the Aftermath, which sounded like we were really setting up for a serious battle. I am hopeful that your experience with setting boundaries is not a knockdown, drag out battle, but plan for some pushback. So what does that look like, Jenny? This is getting your comforts. It might be more than a tiny rock or a hot beverage, but how will you take care of yourself after setting boundaries? Because you are likely to get some pushback if you're like, all right, attended this webinar, I'm ready. And they haven't attended this webinar. So they're going to be like, what is happening right now? So I want you to practice on how to take care of yourself after setting the boundaries. And then this is the challenging one. So kind of plan for the emotions and experience and anything for your loved one. You know them, but I don't want you to forecast. And I almost hate saying this because of course you're going to go, and then they're going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then they're, this is a ruminating thought, right? That doesn't really help. So it's like a fine line. Again, this is probably not my best advice, but having those expectations of this could possibly happen, and then I'm going to do this is one thing. Saying, I know how they're going to react, so I'm never going to set boundaries is a whole nother thing. So plan for emotions, but don't let that stop you. Keep it persistent, consistent, do those things.
We have a question that I think would be great right here.
Perfect.
So what would be a good reply? You say no, and the other person says, why not? Why are you saying no?
Oh.
Or they make an assumption.
Because I watched this webinar and this woman told, no, I am just teasing. So why are you saying no? I think a great response, and this may not work for everyone, is something like, because I have to protect myself around this issue. I've been feeling this way about, I think there's an example coming up or something I read about, taking you to appointments. It's been really draining for me to take you to appointments. And I've been thinking about it, and I want to support you in your goal, but me personally taking you to these is no longer going to work for me. And one thing, when you get good, I'm doing air quotes because I don't know whether we ever get great at setting boundaries, but we're always going to have that tendency to go, well, this is why I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. This is why I won't do it anymore. And eventually you'll find less and less of a need to explain yourself and to justify your own needs. But in the beginning, if that cushion helps you of that, like, I need this, I need some peace in this situation, I can no longer drive, I can no longer do these things, explain away, and then remain consistent and persistent in setting those boundaries. I hope that's helpful. Anyone else have anything to add, illustrious panelists or FFTA employees?
I think that was good.
Okay. All right, thanks, Susan. All right, let's keep going. Oh, this is Melissa Urban's work. And I read this on, it's gonna sound so social worky to me. I found out about this at a silent retreat. I was reading a magazine on boundaries, as one does. And she introduced this threat level scale. And to me, it just made so much sense. Here's the drive you to appointments. That there's kind of that, like, green means go, that I'm gonna start at a certain place. Okay, my boundaries here, gently, firmly, simply, can't do it. And then they give you pushback. Why are you saying no? What's happening? I don't understand why you've always taken me to my appointments. What's going on? So that's when you're kind of in the yellow zone. And again, this is like next level maintaining boundaries, but this is where I think we can end up at some point. It's yellow is, your boundary's been crossed. You've made it clear to them, maybe more than once, not able to drive. And so now it's just, I won't drive. And then red, danger, direct language. Nope, I said no. actually, I can't talk about this right now. Again, seems easy on the screen in our comfy living rooms or wherever we are. Again, I think this is almost next level stuff. If you have zero experience setting boundaries, looking at this might seem really intimidating. But to me, this was a really interesting visual. As you're going through your day and you're feeling like, oh, I should have set a boundary about that. Maybe you're feeling again in your body, you're feeling these things. Thinking back on this stoplight and going, oh, I mean, this is a universal, well, different countries have different styles, but this is a universal image. So I thought this was helpful as we were thinking practically, like we all want to kind of be in that green, like, hey, I'm not able to do this, and have the other person go, okay, I respect your boundary. But we know that sometimes it's going to be yellow and red, and we're going to talk more about, kind of what happens when we're in that danger zone here in a little bit. Okay. Oh, it's you again. Hello.
Thanks so much, Jenny. So helpful. In terms of burnout, I want to talk a little bit about how I've been able to address burnout by using boundaries, I guess by using my own boundaries. And really it's, I know this I know many of us have heard this, but just reminding yourself that you can't do everything and many outcomes are out of my control. We are just one piece of the puzzle, and oftentimes the most you can do is just be a supportive family member or friend to the person dealing with depression or whatever condition that they're dealing with. Sometimes that's really the most helpful thing that you can do. I've also, run into situations where I've let my personal family issues impact my job, my livelihood. And when it gets to that point, I realize that I literally can't afford to let that happen and let it impact other areas of my life. Because if that happens, then that really helps no one. So it's really helped to put that in perspective in a very real way. So it's definitely a good reminder for me personally. And I think some other people it might resonate for you too. Just to remind yourself that it's okay not to be able to fix everything. It's okay to not always have all the answers. If some days you fall short, that's okay too. And you have to give yourself the same love, compassion, and patience that you give to your family members. Otherwise, you might need a caregiver yourself. So it's just a constant reminder of those things.
Yeah. And that you can still be a good person, a good parent, all those things with boundaries. Yeah.
Definitely.
Did you hit, helping balance your own needs while supporting your loved one?
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to. Yeah, so I think a few things that help me personally, just kind of day to day, is having a routine. Um, so that's definitely helped. It's just helped keep me sane, and really, it's realistic little things that I can do day to day. Small things. Again, making sure I eat a piece of fruit, or making sure I hit 5,000 steps a day, or reading a few pages out of a book that I'm in, a novel that I'm enjoying. Little things like that aren't too demanding on my time, and I can get everything else done in terms of my responsibilities, but still feel like I'm doing something for myself. And they're really, for me personally, they're relaxing things that help keep me grounded. And even if I'm traveling or I'm somewhere else, I'm in a different situation, I don't even have to be home to do those things, right? So it helps keep me grounded and helps me feel like I'm doing something for myself, and I can always tweak the routine depending on what's going on in that period of my life. But I guess I'm a routine oriented person. It really helps me personally do those little things every single day to help me feel like I'm doing something for myself and I'm not getting lost in the shuffle.
I like that. I don't want you to get lost in the shuffle for sure. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So we've kind of alluded to this slide many times. So having that compassion for yourself and for others, again, new territory for all of us, in most cases. We're going to have reactions all over the place, right? Of like, oh, okay, this feels good. You did it. You're feeling confident. And then it might be like, ugh, why did I do that? And this can all be in the same few minutes, as you're kind of working to, again, be persistent and consistent. I sound very broken recordness, but this is to me what's helpful, as you're being persistent and consistent, reminding yourself, again, tough stuff, new territory for all of us. So yeah, you don't have to high five yourself in the mirror necessarily, but you can definitely be compassionate with yourself. So we talked about that practice. So remember that poll, that this is a lifelong learning practice. So learning for many of us involves practice. So either individually or in community. So what does that look like? Practicing saying no to imaginary scenarios. And again, this might sound odd to some of you, but that shower or the commute to work, this is a great time. I don't know if you've ever been driving down the highway and you'll see a person, they're probably on like their phone, but I always imagine that they're working on boundaries. No, I'm just kidding. That they're talking to themselves. Sometimes it looks like that. So you can now imagine, if anyone sees you, you're on the phone, but this is a great place to talk to yourself and to have that hard conversation, to kind of do that rehearsal bit. And again, don't knock it till you've tried it. If you're going, yeah, right, Jenny, that's just never going to work for me, please give it a try. I mean, it's one place to start, is rehearsing. Asking for help with a practice, asking for help if you're like, I can't do this by myself. I need input. I need a warm body. Asking for help to practice with someone you trust. Maybe it's that boundary buddy we talked about earlier. Hey, like maybe they need support too. The power of peer. Or maybe it's a professional. Trust me, I am not working clinically as a therapist right now, but I loved when people would come into my office and say, can I run this by you? Can we practice? And I would go, yes. Because it was, again, I felt honored to begin with that they trusted me enough to practice these really vulnerable and hard things. But that's part of my job, making people feel at ease when they do hard things. So trust me, your therapist's going to love it. They're going to say, yes, more, please. And they are going to be a safe place to practice that. So this other one, state out loud. You can see that sentence on the screen. Sometimes I giggle at myself, sorry. That, you could say like, okay, mom, or okay, wife, or okay, husband, why are you doing this? And you can say, I'm working to place better boundaries around this experience in my life. And they might go, what? But again, this is pretty clear, right? There's no question. There's no, that my boundaries have been poor. And, I want to have a better experience as a caregiver, as someone who's loving and supporting you. I need to place boundaries here. Practice, and then troubleshoot. So FFDA has a great blog on boundaries if you haven't read it yet. And a lot of this information is covered in that, because again, this is planning for that aftermath or for the pushback. If things get heated, ask for and take space. So if you ask for it and it's not given to you, just take it. So move yourself away from the conversation. I'm not saying you avoid it. That's not going to work either. But you can plan for a return when folks are calmer, and even schedule it. You can schedule the return for that certain time of day, that like 15 minutes of the day when you're all like well-fed, rested, calm. Schedule a time to talk about boundaries. Again, this can happen in real life. I promise you. You're going to need to repeat yourself. Those that haven't been used to holding boundaries, they're going to need that repetition, and they're also going to test you. They're going to be like, will he really hold a boundary? Let's see. Let's get in there. And again, I do this because I feel like sometimes my kids do that little poke. Like, when's mom gonna lose it on me? They do that little, they're coming at you. So they are going to test you. And this is going to require your strength. Okay. This would be a great time for me to see whether there's any questions. Oh, okay. I see one. Oh, Karina. Okay. Often you are afraid to set boundaries because it can affect your relationship and you might lose that person. Oh gosh, that's really scary. What do you do about that? Nobody wants to lose their person. So there's a pretty pat answer I could give you. I don't know whether I have a great answer right now, and I might want to think about that more. And maybe FFDA can hit you up with maybe another post or something. But the pretty pat answer is something like, the people that really push back or say they're going to leave your life are the ones. So if you are the ones that benefited from you not having those boundaries, if that makes sense. So they're going to push back, but I wonder, could you start with something small with them? Would that be an option when you're like, you're scared, you don't want to lose that person? Could you try? I think we have a lot of expectations, again, how people are going to react. And I'm not sure what you mean by lose. And I probably don't need details, but I wonder, whether this is a place to start small and gentle and practice with that person. I don't know if anyone else has input. And I hope that's an okay answer.
Someone did put in the comments,
Oh, okay.
maybe when starting to set boundaries, we can start with something that the other person is beginning to do, something that you want them to do, and then set the boundary in a positive way, build on their little effort that they're starting to do.
Patricia, I love it. That's really a great response. Thank you so much. As I flounder, it's nice having those folks that are not floundering out there. That's great. And I want to
Really not floundering.
thanks so much. So Karina, you said that in the chat too. I wanted to also kind of talk about, Heidi says something, looks like just a comment. So when you're in the helping field, is we are on this call, you're being pulled and tested with boundaries and also dealing with loved ones as a caregiver. I discuss this with my staff all the time, and self-care is important. Amen. So when I talk a lot, I do presentations a lot, and one of the audiences that I do are professional caregivers as well. So we have family unpaid caregivers, and then we have people that are paid to care. So again, nurses, social workers, home health aides, there's a whole bunch of us, all valid, all important, but man, we have the same, very similar issues at times. We can be hit with the emotions and the pushback on boundaries. So excellent that you are talking about self-care with your staff. Okay. Oh, one more question. In addition to that question, what about when you not only lose that person, but the children? Oh, okay. So you're talking about a family being kind of separated because of a boundary issue. I don't know whether, Jennifer, if you want to add just a little bit more for clarifying information there, I can do my best to answer that after I do a somatic practice.
Well, and Jenny, I would also, the mantra that we do is, we can't answer everything here. And sometimes the best place to go is to a therapist. And here it might be a family therapy kind of thing.
Yeah, especially dealing with very, a separation of family is super, super challenging. So great answer. Okay. I am going to, oh goodness, guys, I want you to be just so gentle with me as I was thinking about this. There's a big push right now in mental health and in wellness in general is integrating experiences in your body and your mind, and that working through things in your mind. And again, I'm going to do therapy light here. I'm going to stop in a second. But working through things in your mind aren't going to be enough. That having traumatic experiences or challenges can live in both your mind and your body. And that when you work on releasing holds in both places, that is where healing begins. So I actually found / kind of changed up a somatic exercise for boundaries. So you may already be doing somatic exercises, you just don't have this fancy name for them. Maybe you have been introduced to like the emotional freedom technique, which is also called tapping. Maybe you've seen that like pretty viral grounding routine that is like, name 5 things you can see, touch, smell. That is a somatic exercise that is engaging senses. Visualization, a pretty common one, and one I use both personally and professionally, also somatic exercise. So for some folks, and this was a question that was submitted, it was kind of talking about being closed off. So I'm guessing a lot of people on this call are like, oh, I can't set any boundaries, like meaning I have these loose, there's porous, there's kind of enmeshed relationships. But some of you, and I see you, I feel you, are like, I can't get close to people. I had experiences in my life or whatever, I am closed off, that I need to feel safe. I have to have very rigid boundaries. So quick disclaimer, I am not giving medical advice right now. This is me doing like a little appetizer, a little taste of the work that you could do around boundaries. So again, like Susan just said so beautifully, seek support from a therapist. Again, to me, the ultimate self-care, the ultimate way to take care of yourself. So I'm going to show you an exercise that kind of mirrors progressive muscle relaxation. I don't know if you've done that before, but it's kind of when you tense up, your fists, you let them go. And then you work on like can you tense your upper arms? Yeah. Tense your upper arms or lower arms and you let them go. So that's kind of what progressive muscle reaction looks like. But we are going to do this for boundaries. So I'm going to model and then you can consider trying it. If you're alone, you're like, what the heck? I've tried other things. Nobody's watching. Everyone is watching me right now. So I can't make you feel safe. So think back on our ground rules and the things we talked about in the beginning. Safety in any situation is a personal experience. So I'm going to demonstrate this and you can participate, or you can kind of put this in your back pocket, put it in your toolbox, or you can be like, nope, you can let it go. So however you want to go. So in this somatic exercise that we're going to be working with rigid boundaries. So I'm going to spend a minute, I'm going to get really serious and take my glasses off. I'm going to spend a minute thinking about a place where I hold rigidity, that I have some self-protective boundaries. And then I'm just going to, I am wearing jeans, so I'm not super flexible, but I'm going to curl myself into a little ball and I'm going to tighten. And I'm going to sit. And then after a little bit of time, I'm going to come out. I'm going to come to stillness and I'm going to release. And I'm going to kind of tap into that wise adult side of me who doesn't have to protect myself anymore, if that's been my experience. That I'm going to find an ease and a peace and an opening in what holding healthy boundaries could look like for me. So again, I call that my wise adult who knows I'm safe in this moment. Maybe something else speaks to you. So I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to sit. I'm going to spend a minute thinking about a place as I kind of curl up where I protect myself, where I hold those rigid self-protective boundaries. And then I'm going to curl over and I'm going to tighten. And for time reasons, I'm not holding this for long. And it also it can feel intense to think about, why have I been protecting myself? So maybe I can do 10 seconds of this and then I go, oh, I got to release. I got to come back right here. I got to come back to that wise adult. You can play with this. I don't want this to be traumatizing for you. So please do this with caution, do this with, support if you need it. So that is one practice. I encourage you to find something that works for you. Again, talking about boundaries, thinking about boundaries, there are other ways to look at boundaries. So one of my sweet spots, one of my niches, I guess, is working with breath and visualization. And you've heard me say many times during this presentation, my center needs to be at peace. That is my reason for having boundaries, that boundaries equal peace for me. Again, not easy, but that they will lead to peace. So I did not come up with this guided meditation, but I did find it on mindfulnessexercises.com. So shout out to them, whoever they are. And I really appreciate the shout out on our screen. I work at Courage to Caregivers, as they mentioned. So we have an amazing playlist, if I do say so myself, on YouTube that is guided breath and visualization meditations. I am not doing them. Someone wonderful named Kathy or Ariel, or they are presenting. They are trained yoga teachers. I am not. I am a novice, but a longtime practitioner, if that makes sense. So I'm going to walk you through a meditation right now. Again, hopefully you're somewhere comfortable. You are feeling some ease. Maybe you have questions. Maybe you have, you have a lot of turmoil. We're coming to the close of this webinar. I want you to leave this at least feeling like this could be possible for you. So one way to do that for me is to breathe and to do visualization. So again, if this isn't safe for you, if this isn't whatever for you, just you can do something that does feel safe for you right now. Maybe go get a glass of water, maybe close your eyes, however you want to feel safe. But if you have the ability to do this, I'm going to walk you through a guided meditation script for imagining your inner land to build healthy boundaries. This is a visualization. So let's begin by taking 5 deep breaths. And if you've got a certain breathing practice that you like, do it. If not, just take some normal breaths. You have been breathing since the day you were born. You know how to do it. Don't judge, just take 5 breaths. So maybe you're sitting or you're laying or maybe you're cozy somewhere, and maybe you can feel the weight of your body, how it presses down. Make sure that your spine is completely straight if you can. No pressure. Be in your body, however feels comfortable to you. And that you have kind of a confident posture or a really comfy posture. I think either of those work. Close your eyes if you can, or downcast your gaze. Either of those are utterly fine. It does, for some people, help their ability to focus if they close their eyes, but either works. So as you breathe easily and gently, you can feel relaxed. Let my voice guide you like a beacon of light through the darkness. So visualize with me now. The sun's rising. You see you're standing in beautiful, lush green grass, and there is a small house that you've built by hand in the middle of it. Isn't it beautiful? This house represents you and all the work that you put into yourself, and the grass represents the world outside of you. You decide it would be good to plant some trees and shrubs so that these plants will aid in protecting you from harm. And they'll also be a benefit to you and your neighborhood. For example, maybe you're going to plant a raspberry bush. They're spiky, they're dense, but wow, they can give you a bounty of fruit, and you can enjoy those and be nourished by them, in some cases, several times a season. If you plant many in a row, they will protect you as well as a tall electric fence. But this plant also gives you nourishment. It serves 2 purposes. When you plant tall trees, they'll protect you from harsh winds if placed in a way that is good through all the seasons. Tall trees supply us with oxygen, and they're giving, and they're also protecting. These trees serve many purposes here as well. So you're taking a look at this beautiful life force that you've planted on your land. You notice they need water. You find the lowest lying area and begin digging down and around, making the shape of a small pond. As you step back from the circle of dirt you created, you know that only a few heavy rains need to pour down and will begin to fill and turn into a natural source of water. This pond serves many purposes on your land. Provides you with you and the wildlife with water, It also gives you somewhere to go to meditate and reflect on the good things in your life and the good that you do for others. Closer to your house, you see that you need some vegetables and fruits, so you create a garden that is easy for you to access and water when necessary. You plant your fruits, plant the fruits you like, and any kind of vegetables you like and need. Your garden flourishes and provides. All this garden needs from you is to be tended to. You look around and you see you need an orchard. So you plant apple trees and fruiting trees right next to the protected area by the big tall trees and a little closer to the pond so that they can drink. This orchard supplies you with the most delicious apples you've ever tasted, and their nutrients are off the charts. You look around at your plot of land and you are proud. Not only do all these plants protect you and your home, but they give to you the community around them. So make sure you work on the garden within you, that internal landscape, and put up proper barriers that have planted well, and with love and care, they also give. You are protected and allowed to lead a happy life. So before you prepare to leave this meditation, take a look at your hand-built home and make any necessary changes. Remember, you're an excellent builder after all. And if you're coming out, there is a poll about how you're feeling now through this quick meditation. Great, thank you. Oh, I love the option of hopeful. It's great. Again, being stressed and anxious is okay too. I don't probably have to tell you that, but yeah. However you feel is okay. Thanks. Well, you guys are probably learning about me that I really like imagery. And both of these things are about physical boundaries. But I also hope that you could catch the little allusion into, your internal world, your internal landscape. And man, I love Mary Oliver. Again, Kristen Neff, Mary Oliver, biggest fangirls ever. If you want to keep your eyes closed, even as I started chatting again, I think this poem's almost a meditation to me. So boundaries, Mary Oliver. There's a place where the town ends and the fields begin. It's not marked, but the feet know it. Also the heart that is longing for refreshment and equally for repose. Someday we'll live in the sky. Meanwhile, the house of our lives is this green world. The fields, the ponds, the birds, the thick black oaks. Surely they are the invention of something wonderful. And the tiger lilies and the runaway honeysuckle that no one will ever trim again. Where is it, I ask, and then my feet know it. One jump and I'm home. Boundaries by Mary Oliver. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, that was incredible. And I feel bad jumping on with that lovely poem hanging there. I love the imagery in that as well. And I really appreciate all that you've shared and the way that we were able to weave in some of the questions and all of that. I think we're going to have another poll, but I did want to mention that we have the survey coming up. I can do this. Please do take the survey. As I mentioned earlier, it helps us shape our programs, it helps us improve our programs, and it helps us to make sure that we're offering the kinds of things that you want to learn about. The survey is, the poll is, how much do you know about setting boundaries for healthy relationships? Hint, hint, we're trying to see how we did. So do the poll, but also please do the survey. We'll have the link in the chat as well. And again, we'll everyone who completes the survey online will share with them an opportunity to win one of these books. What we got here? Okay. Yay! It looks like people have moved up, so I'm very excited about that. People are now more a good amount and a lot in some, and very few people and not much. So that's very exciting. Yay! We like that. What do we got here? Families for Depression Awareness. I talked earlier about our website, but here are a couple of really specific things for you. One is that we have a template for a family action plan. It gives you a chance to work with other members of your family and the person with who's living with depression, if they're able, to really isolate like one thing you want to address. And it gives you some steps to walk through to get to that. Gives a chance to like make assignments to people, rule out things that you just can't do. And it helps with making priorities. It helps with people getting things done. So please do try that out if you're in that kind of situation where you are trying to deal with some issues. The other thing is building your family caregiver toolkit, which we have as a download that you can fill out. We also have a video on guiding you how to do it. And I believe we have something longer too. So it's really a chance for you to assess the resources that you have available to yourself as a caregiver, really build in your self-care and remind yourself how important that is, and find the areas where you need to educate yourself more. And hopefully we'll be able to help you with a lot of that too. I would very much like to thank our funders because we get generous support from a variety of sources, including the Takeda-Lundbeck Alliance, Sage Therapeutics, Alkermes, Janssen Neuroscience, and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health Suicide Prevention Program. Also, thank you so much, Jenny and Helena. Couldn't have done it without you. Loved the presentation, loved the all the information that you shared. For everyone who is on this webinar, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Again, please share your experience in the survey. And if you thought that this gave you something that would be beneficial to other people, please do share it. It will be available as a recording for beyond the foreseeable future. And again, if you did get something out of this and you're able to support us, please do visit our website and give us a little donation. We'd appreciate it. All right, now we can move into the questions and answers. So I'm actually going to stop sharing the screen. Hooray. We have a little bit of time that we can do. Oops, survey isn't working. We'll send out the link to everybody who registered, and we'll make sure that it's working. Apologies for that, but you should be getting that email probably tomorrow. So it'll have the link for the survey, and it'll also have the link to other resources. So
posted again in the chat, and it is, oh, okay. The last one was working. So yeah, and then she also just commented about
survey not opening, maybe a browser issue. So if possible, try opening it in a different browser, and we'll send a link tomorrow for the recording of the webinar as well. All right. So how can you enforce boundaries without escalating situations? You know, we talked about that a little bit, but I think it's a persistent fear that people have.
So I feel like I answered this in a different, in slightly, and like you pointed out. So this is a start small, and this is also a remove yourself situation. If you know, if things do escalate, even when you start small, start gently. It's it's keeping yourself safe in that situation. I think boundaries via text are also, for some folks, that may work. That you are separated physically, and that you're, that for some folks, again, maybe not ideal, but that could be a way to not escalate a situation, is to email, write a letter. Hey, this is something I've tolerated that I'm no longer willing to tolerate. Could work for you.
Yeah, I think you would do that, that you would want to establish that that's an acceptable way of communicating,
Do that. Mhm.
oh, which you may do by text, but who knows? Um, uh, Here's a good one. How do I maintain my own mental health if my significant other is dealing with depression? I don't know who wants to answer. How about you, Helena?
Yeah, I think I alluded to this a little bit, but and not to go over the same answer again, but my routine has really saved me so much in terms of maintaining some distance and not getting too involved. So just I know it sounds so basic and so simple, but it really makes a big difference for me in terms of separation and having a little bit of difference of maintaining, maintaining a little bit of a difference.
I think this is probably where the idea of the many dimensions of yourself and the many dimensions of self-care can come into. And excuse me, we do cover that in the toolkit that I just talked about. But just recognizing that you are a complex person, you have different aspects of your personality, of your being, that need nurturing. So I think you're right. That like all these forms of self-care really do help us stay healthier. Jenny, did you want to say something?
I feel like, in reminding in a gentle way, that you are a complex person. So are they. Neither of you are special in this, and having, needs that other people fill, or, needs that, that you have, even as they are struggling with mental illness, that you are still needing, to live a full life, that you can still be, again, loving and lovable as you work and support that person.
And one thing that we don't always say is you don't have to have a diagnosis to get a benefit from therapy. You don't have to, right? Okay, so people should understand that you can use therapy for a short period to deal with some issues, and that can just be the real game changer for you. Having somebody who can, help you find those resources within yourself and externally as well. Here's one that I think is kind of tough. If your loved one is mentally ill but refuses medication, should someone continue to give support mentally, physically, financially, emotionally? Like, what kind of boundaries do you set around that?
Well, that is a hard one. I mean, I can't tell you not to support someone. I don't think any of us can tell you that, but I can suggest to you that you take care of yourself as you make these decisions. And again, look at yourself as a complex, multifaceted person as you make these type of decisions. Helena, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think in terms of, I guess from a public health perspective, for someone to want or not want to take medication, it's really, it has to be something that is their choice and something that they're on board with. So I would, in terms of boundaries, I guess I would maintain the boundary that it's they have to come to the conclusion that it's the right, it's part of a tool that helps them in terms of feeling better about themselves. And as far as a caregiver, personally, it wouldn't, it's not a conditional thing for me in terms of providing support. If it's just a family member that needs to know that you're there for them. But you can still maintain boundaries while still having them know that you're there for them and supporting them.
And you're supporting them, but it doesn't have to be financially.
I didn't mean
you can have that
financially.
boundary.
Yes.
And it becomes difficult when someone's mental health condition affects their judgment.
Right.
So it does get complicated. It's probably something that you could use some support from a support group, a therapist, whoever it is.
For sure.
How do people know if they're enabling somebody rather than being supportive?
That's what I was thinking of with the previous question, when it's the answer that I gave of, you should still support them and it's their decision whether or not to take medication. And then that left me open to thinking, well, does that mean that I'm enabling them? And I guess it's very case specific, and it's a struggle, right, in terms of figuring out what the balance is, and how much how much rope you can give them, so to speak, in terms of things they want to do. And then when you see that they're being destructive, I guess it's really case by case. It's, if someone has an answer, that would be helpful, because I realize that that's a narrow line to walk.
Guys are some tough questions.
I know.
Thought about this one because I did have access to it. So some signs that you're enabling instead of supporting: not having consistent boundaries. What an easy answer. But honestly, I feel like this is something else that you might feel in your gut when it feels uncomfortable, and you go, okay, they are, that it feels off. If you have that body awareness, that is a sign potentially. It's another one I don't have a great answer for right now. I think enabling and supporting there, I think that is again, we keep saying contact a therapist, but I wonder, and I see someone speaking to the power of therapy in the chat. I feel like this is a situation that you can come at, and again, because you're going to be able to bounce these ideas off a therapist and say, like, well, this is I did this, and then they did that, and then, hey, what do you think about this? And they're going to walk you through it in their therapeutic way, but that would be a great question to start there.
And how about codependence? How do you know if you're being codependent? Don't mute, Jenny.
I'm thinking quietly. How do you know if you're
All right, well, we'll get back to y'all on that one. Here's a different one. What are some kind phrases I can use to set boundaries?
In terms of phrases, I guess setting phrases are important, but I think tone of voice is also very important. The way, it's not what you say, it's the way you say it. We hear that a lot, right? So I think that can make a big difference. You can say something that's very firm, but say it in a loving way, or or give feedback or something like that, but say it in a way that it's accepted. So whatever it is that you're saying, I think the tone of voice can make a huge difference.
Also,
Whatever
timing
phrase
and
that may be.
context. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, and the context you were saying.
I think the timing, like, don't get in the heat of the moment, and have yourself be calm so that you can model that and preserve yourself. Jenny?
healthy, safe, friendly ways to assert boundaries. Putting the onus on yourself. That's a great communication style of, I've been feeling this. I need to ask for support around this from you. I've been feeling overwhelmed. I've been feeling, tired. I've been feeling burnout. I want to protect my peace. I think that's another one. I see someone in the chat has added something. You can choose to, I will choose to. I like that. There's a gentleness and firmness with that for some reason. Yeah, that choice, very firm. Like it.
I don't know. I don't know if this one is too specific, but I think that we already acknowledged that a lot of people on the call or on the webinar are people who have adult children. So someone asked, what suggestions can you give for parents who are beyond burnout, for parents who cannot leave an adult child alone without worry?
Mhm. I think this is another small step.
I also think you need a support, you need your own support team.
Yeah, you need a network. You need a small step of, you aren't obviously going to go on vacation for a week. That's ridiculous that I'm even mentioning that, but that you can say, I'm going to take a walk around this block right now. And you're going to sit with your uncomfortableness, both of you, the caregiver and their loved one. Like I'm going to do a walk. I'm going to do a sit on the porch. And we're going to see how this feels together. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. I mean, the power of the baby step cannot be denied. And that's a baby step.
I agree. And a lot of it, I think realizing that we do have more influence in our tone of voice, our mannerisms, things like that, that impact them if they're in a specific, if they're in a vulnerable place. So taking care of ourselves and realizing the influence that we have on the situation is, at least one thing that we can control. So
All right, well, I think the idea of, finding the things that we can control so that we feel some groundedness and build our confidence, and taking the baby steps, I think all of those are great ideas. And I really encourage people to try them out. Feel free to drop us a line and let us know how it's going. Do check out Courage to Caregivers, because they have groups that could be useful to you, and they have a lot of information, and we love working with them. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Helena. Very much appreciated. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Check out our website. We got lots of stuff for you. And do take care and have a good rest of your evening.